Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you. So today we're going to be covering Swordsoul Tenyi yet again. I think between the two Tier 1 decks, Swordsoul Tenyi and Baronne de Fluer, if I was to pick one, I would definitely prefer the Swordsoul Tenyis here. Not that I dislike Baronne de Fluer, but as far as like my go-to kind of laddering deck, if I want to just, really just grind through some games with a solid deck that I know well and I know is very good, Swordsoul Tenyi is my default pick here. And it was indeed my pick here. At the time of recording this video, it was actually, or it is actually still currently, towards the end of the season, within the new ban list, but not yet quite Season 11. And funnily enough here, even in the last few days, I was still in Platinum, just due to the nature of, the Link Ladder event taking a bit of my time there, as well as I mentioned a couple of the other videos, having some IRL stuff going on. Yeah, I didn't have like nearly as much time to ladder or just play Master Duel in general as I usually do. So, I was here in my last few days. It's still actually the 28th here, so I still would have had a few days, but I did finally get up to Diamond there. And for that last push through the end of Platinum, I decided to take Swordsoul Tenyi here. So we're going to see some games from that last push there. Yeah, this is the build that I have landed on for Season 11, the post-banlist build here, with Longyuan going from 3 to 2. I don't think it's been that much of a consistency blow. It's been a bit of one. I mean, I've noticed that, obviously we're opening it slightly less, and whether it's good or not to open Longyuan, it typically is, but it can definitely vary from hand to hand. So, that said, I don't think it very much affects where Swordsoul Tenyi is in the meta, as the Tier 1 deck alongside Baronne de Fluer, and even between Baronne de Fluer and Swordsoul Tenyi. I do think Baronne de Fluer is the better of the two overall, but it's not by that much, honestly. Swordsoul Tenyi, since its release way back in Season 5, 6 months ago now, has just remained very solid and very consistent, and even the build itself has not really changed that much at all since Season 5. So it was definitely a good deck to invest in back then. If you haven't built the deck already, I do still think it's a pretty decent investment. It's obviously still good now. I will say, as I talked about a bit in the past when talking about Swordsoul Tenyi, I do think that some of the newer meta decks coming up, like Sprites and Tier Limitals, will definitely push this deck out of the meta just due to power creeping it out. That said, I think even then it'll remain a solid Tier 2 or 3 deck, so I don't think it's a bad investment if you haven't gotten it yet. But if you've been playing it this whole time, then yeah, it's definitely been very, very much worthwhile. Again, 6 months with this deck, pretty much the whole time being at Tier 1. There was a moment when Adventure Prank Kids was the big deck where it kind of got pushed down to Tier 2 a little bit, but even then you could still have made an argument for it being Tier 1 at that time, and was, Tier 1 very shortly after, as that reign of Adventure Prank Kids, I don't even think lasted a full month. Might have even been 3 weeks and some change, but in any case, the build that we're playing here is definitely a bit different from the last one that we used. I'm laughing because that last one, oops, forgot the Call by the Grave, which is definitely a vital card to have, and not just this deck, but I think pretty much any deck in Master Duel. I would definitely consider this a staple. It's like the quote-unquote Master Duel tax, right? Where just due to what's legal and the nature of being best of one, pretty much every deck I build, honestly, ends up having 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom, 1 Nibiru, 2 Call by, and 1 Crossout Exterminator. So, I don't know, it's kind of like you could consider a pro and a con that, oh, you don't have to worry about building 25% of your deck. You've already got it there, those 10 cards. But I don't mind it too much, honestly. And, that said, it's not even every single deck you have to play all those cards, but pretty much every deck I build, I end up having those 10 cards there. So, yeah, in any case, we did drop the Desires. I saw some comments suggesting, and I think I'm inclined to agree, that with only 2 Longyuan, I think that's enough where I don't want to take the chance of running Desires. Plus, I don't know, it was definitely RNG, but I was noticing in my testing, and even in those, duels that I posted, that I was getting some really, really questionable Desires mills as far as I was just milling a lot of my resources there. So, Desires is just one of those cards that I tend to go back and forth on, not just in this deck, but pretty much any deck that can play it. I'm like, should I? I could. I'll try it. It's alright, but that's just my general feeling about Desires overall as a card. It's just But, yeah, I've been liking this build just fine. I don't think it's fine without it, so Yeah, let's see here. The extra deck is pretty much the same. Oh, we are playing Summit. I don't think we were playing Summit in the last build, but I did include Summit again. And yeah, I actually had a couple of instances where it came in a lot of handy. So we'll get to see, I think, at least one of those here in the games that we have coming up. I mean, like I said before, this deck hasn't really changed too much, like, since Season 5. A few tech changes within my builds here, but ultimately, of course, Halkarorodon, losing that was the most significant change, but even that didn't really change how the deck functions overall. It just kind of gave it one less combo line to do the stuff it was already doing. But that said, let's go ahead and break the list down card by card, and then look at some games. We are playing 1 Effect Veiler, 2 Tenyi Spirit Adhara, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Tenyi Spirit Shthana, 3 Swordsoul of Mo Ye, 2 Swordsoul of Taia, 2 Incredible Ecclesia, the Virtuous, 2 Swordsoul Strategist Longyuan, 2 Tenyi Spirit Vishuda, 3 Tenyi Spirit Ashuna, 1 Nibiru, the Primal Being, 1 Archnemesis Protos, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 3 Swordsoul Emergence, 1 Swordsoul Sacred Summit, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 2 Heavenly Dragon Circle, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and 1 Swordsoul Blackout to round out the extra deck. The main deck, sorry. The extra deck is going to have 1 Yazi, Evil of the Zing, 2 Baxia, Brightness of the Zing, 1 Draco, Berserker of the Tenyi, 1 Adamancipator, Risen Dragite, 2 Swordsoul Grandmaster Chi-Xiao, 1 Chao Fang, Phantom of the Zing, 1 Baronne de Fluer, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Sheng Ying, 1 Swordsoul Sinister Sovereign Qixing Longyuan, 3 Monk of the Tenyi, and then finally 1 Shaman of the Tenyi, and that'll round out the extra deck. So, yeah, let's go and take a look at some games. Okay, this first game here is going to be against Salamangreats, which I thought about playing, you know, a little bit here at the end of the season just to kind of, now that I've actually hit Diamond, just as a way of kind of getting one more video in with it. Not just one more video in with it, but I really like the deck too, and I do want to play with it more. But it's like, I have so many decks. It's just my eternal problem. I always talk about this, like, so many decks to show, so little time. Let me know if you want to see more Salamangreats. I would like to come back to them, and yeah, I think I could reasonably soon, honestly. Just thinking about the timing of other decks I want to play, but that's all behind the scenes stuff. In any case here, I'm gonna go ahead and lead with the Mo Ye into Chi-Xiao, of course. I can actually afford to search the Blackout here because I've already got the Protos and the Emergence, so I can just Emergence for the Longyuan. I could have also potentially gone for a Summit here, but I didn't have a way to get a Taia to discard, so I wouldn't have been able to go into the Dragite or into the level 8 Synchro in general, so ultimately just decided to go for the Blackout here for more disruption options. Oh, but yeah, the Protos actually didn't end up having another attribute to send for it, which is a little bit too bad there, but, you know, it happens. Opponent's going to start off with the Flame Buffalo, sending that for the Salamangreats Balinks here. I'm actually going to use the Call by the Grave on the Buffalo here, because I think it's enough of a pain that I want to go ahead and do that. But my opponent's got a Ghost Spell of all things. Now, I could Ash Blossom this, or not Ash Blossom, Baronne de Fluer this, but I ultimately decided to let it resolve. Just because I didn't think it was like yes, I would have liked to have stopped this Buffalo, but I didn't think it was so imperative to do so that it was worth the Baron Omnigate here. Opponent already had the Sanctuary in hand. I kind of figured as much when they didn't search it with Balinks. Using the Sanctuary to cycle the Balinks, which I, in the moment, didn't super understand, but honestly was a very good play, as we'll see as the game progresses. It ultimately ended up allowing my opponent to buy quite a bit of time here, so from there they'll go into the Mirage Stalio, or Stalio, because it's a Stallion, right? I'll go ahead and Chi-Xiao here just to negate the search from the extra deck, or not the extra deck, the main deck, because I don't want them to give any more, like I know they still got other resources like the Jack Jaguar in their graveyard, but I didn't want them to get even more stuff onto the board, particularly from the deck there. Especially because they could summon it from the deck, and you know, depending on the monster, might even be able to recur it from grave later too. So it's just like, let's just nip it, you know, let's just nip it in the bud here and not even have to worry about it. I'll use the Blackout here. I did know that it was going to get negated, not negated, but that the Balinks is going to prevent their cards from being destroyed. But, you know, that wasn't really going to change, you know, no matter when I flipped up the Blackout here. And then we're already going to lose the Chi Shao anyway. So I just decided, you know, let's just go ahead and force the Balinks now. I'll try to hit one of these back rows with the Baron, but it ends up being a Solemn Strike. So, you know, oops. Oh well. I figured it might be an imperm or something. I was like, oh, well, at least then I can negate it or just let it resolve, whatever. But nope, it was a Solemn Strike. So the opponent's got a call by as well. So it kind of seems like they've got just about everything here as I try to do my Ecclesia here. Again, I figured, well, you know, if Ecclesia gets negated, well, you know, that's still fine because I've got the Protos here. So Protos, obviously we can call fire pretty easily. Opponent is going to use the other Balinks here, but that's actually weirdly going to work out for me because I'll destroy one of their monsters and leave the other one on board. And now I have something else to call for the next turn with my Protos here. So I can hit fire again. Now, obviously, Salamangreats, you call fire, and they can't special summon it. Go figure, they really can't do a whole lot after that. So, yeah, funny how that works. In any case, yeah, I'll just go ahead and go for the Monk of the Tenyi, do a little bit of damage here. I'll get my opponent into a lethal range on the next turn. Even if my Protos gets answered, I can still max C plus Monk for lethal. Obviously, it's going to kind of depend on the scenario, but opponent's going to activate this circle. I'm not, you know, intimidated by it because obviously they can't special summon fire monsters, so I don't really care. They'll just set a monster and pass, so. Alright, we end up drawing an Ashuna, which is a pretty good draw here. I'm going to use this to go ahead and get the Vishuda. Oh, that's what I would do if my opponent didn't concede there, yeah. But my plan was just go for the Vishuda, bounce the face-down monster. The back row hadn't really been used up to this point, so I wasn't really intimidated by it. And then we could just go for lethal there. Opponent realized this and then just decided to concede. So, nice, easy peasy. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. Alright, our next duel here is going to be against Eldlich. I've got a couple of duels here against Eldlich, actually, now that I think about it, and I'm really glad to be able to show these, because Eldlich is what I consider one of Swordsoul Tenyi's more difficult matchups, and we were able to play through a couple of those matches here in some pretty creative ways, in particular this game, if this is what I'm remembering, so. I'll lead with the Emergence here. I could have led with the Longyuan and then Emergence for a Taia instead of going for the Mo Ye, but I ultimately decided to be a little bit greedy here and just go for the Mo Ye. Opponent doesn't have an in-hand response, so that this is ultimately going to pay off here as I go for the Chi Shao. Yeah, if really what I could have done, and you know, arguably should have done, is gone for the Longyuan for the pitching the Vishuda, and then going for the Baron, and then go for the Emergence for the Taia. But you know, I just. What can I say? I wanted to draw off Mo Ye. I also could have gone for the Chi Xin Longyuan and gotten next to a draw that way, but then of course that wouldn't have prevented anything that the that would have negated the Emergence there. So, alright, with that we'll also set the Emergence plus the Heavenly Dragon, or not the Emergence, the Blackout plus the Heavenly Dragon Circle. And what you might not realize as far as how you can use these two cards kind of in tandem is that if you flip Swordsoul Blackout, the condition for it is to target the war monster you control, but you don't have to destroy it in order to destroy the opponent's two cards. You just have to target it. So what my plan is here, if I have to use on the Chi Shao here, is flipping up the Blackout to target the Chi Shao and then two of the opponent's cards, then chain the Heavenly Dragon Circle, tributing that same Chi Shao to add a follow-up play, a war monster from my deck to my hand. The Blackout will still resolve because the condition of targeting Chi Shao was already met. It'll just destroy just the opponent's two cards, but since the card that I targeted is no longer on the board, it won't be destroyed. So just a fun little bit of information when dealing with both the Dragon Circle plus Blackout. But the opponent's going to Lava Glow me, so that doesn't really matter. And then they'll set 4 cards. At the very least, they didn't establish a golden board here, which I've talked about this a fair bit when playing against Eldlich. The floodgates can be scary, but if they don't have a golden board, there's not going to really be a whole lot they can do to threaten your monsters, and you can just kind of like push away at chip damage in order to try to get lethal there. So. Now we did go for the Monk here in order to use the Vishuda to bounce one of our opponent's face-down cards. My plan was to, you know, potentially try to go for lethal this turn, and I might have been able to do that had I had maybe like one other. I'm just trying to think. I don't know if there was a whole lot that I could have gone for lethal here. they're at 28. Like, I could go for Dragon Circle for Taia and leave them at 1,000, but I don't really have a follow-up play after that, so I just decided to pass here. I did still think this was the right play to get the Vishuda back in hand, and also push for a bit of damage here. Opponent's got yet another Lava Golem. They really want to keep my Monk off the board, probably because they figure I have a Blackout, which they are correct, so... they have another Scarlet Sangui, which is fairly annoying. I'll Maxx you just get the draw, you know, get the cycle. And I'm trying a Call By, which may come in useful later. Opponent's going to reduce my Lava Golem's attack to 0, and then pass, which is actually smart because they know that I have the Vishuda in my hand. So that's why they're leaving me with a 0 attack Lava Golem here on board. Nevertheless, I do have the Taia. I actually got 2 Taias here. But the Taia itself is going to be enough for me to kind of, you know, worm my way, worm, didn't even intend for that pun there, onto the board state and establish a foothold for a victory here. So, opponent's going to flip up a summon limit. I suspected that I might have bounced a Floodgate last turn, just due to the fact that my opponent set 4 cards. It seemed that they were likely to have one. So I think the summon limit might have been the card that I bounced. Obviously, there's no way that I can know that for sure, but ultimately, I'll just go and flip up the Blackout here. I'll target the summon limit and the second card because it was the second card that my opponent set. I find that when playing against Stun and Floodgate decks, this is totally subjective, not an actual tip, mind you, but in my opinion, I find that most people set the most important back rows first, so I tend to target those first with you know, targeted back row like or targeted back row removal like the Blackout here. So I'll target the summon limit and then the second card they set here. Like I mentioned, I'm going to then chain the Heavenly Dragon Circle, so that way you get a free search here. And sure enough, the opponent's other back row was another Floodgate. It was a Gozen match. So this is also why I think I would have bounced either the summon limit or the Gozen match last turn, is because if they had both of these Floodgates here during the last turn, they could have flipped one of them up to stop me from, you know, doing plays. So yeah, I'll still get the token here, and I can bounce the opponent's last face down with the Vishuda. Now I can banish the Ashuna for a Shthana, sync that with the token to go into, I believe I go for a Baxia here, but I really should have just gone for the Chi Shao. Well, I guess either way I would have only been able to bounce one card because I've already used Taia, so I won't be able to use that to make the Baxia. In any case here, yeah, I'll use Baxia, shuffle back the Eldlich, pop a Lava Golem, get the Mo Ye. I haven't used the Mo Ye yet, so I can just go ahead and use that effect, revealing the Taia in order to get the Chi Shao summon here. Although I guess if I had gone for Chi Shao, I couldn't have gone for Mo Ye later, because I could have Baxia to bring the Mo Ye back, so I guess disregard that little bit of what I said earlier there, but in any case here, yeah, we get the Longyuan, pitching the Taia, and then the opponent concedes as they realize I've got lethal. I was just going to go for Cheng-Yang and then, of course, swing in for game at that point. So, yeah, I got a nice solid win in against Eldlich there. Let's go and take a look at the next game. And this next game will also be against Eldlich. I think I actually have a total of, well, we'll see how many we have by the end of it. I thought I only had 2 games, but since I've already got another one here against Eldlich, I think it might even be 3, which I'm totally fine showing. Again, that's one of the more difficult matchups, just in general, but especially for this deck. So I'm sure people are not too, what's what I'm looking for, annoyed that we're seeing multiple games against Eldlich here. So in any case, I'll start with one of my 2 emergences here for a Mo Ye, revealing the Ashuna, and then going for the Chi Shao here. Yeah, I usually like to hedge and go for the Mo Ye, even though Taia, you know, is sometimes the safer option. I think Mo Ye, the extra draw is good enough that it's totally fine. And it's really not any less susceptible, or I guess rather I should say that Taia is not necessarily any less susceptible to removal than the Mo Ye is, or negation rather. Disruption is what I was looking for, than the Mo Ye is. So I'm fine hedging and going for it. Alright, pretty standard opening here, just Chi Shao plus Baronne. We've got the Crossout plus the Valor on top of that, so I'd say that's a little bit below average, especially when you get Lava Golemed again. I can't tell you how many times, even just in testing here, but in general, like especially against later in the season, getting Chi Shao plus Baronne Lava Golem happens. It's very annoying, but what can you do? This Eldlich at least is using the fusion, so it's like, yeah, there's that. That's new and unique. I actually don't know if I've ever, I think at least one other time I've had the Mad Golden Lord get dropped on me. This one's Royal Finish, so it definitely makes sense why the opponent would go out of their way to make it here. But beyond that, it does give my opponent multiple huge beat sticks. That said, you know, these beat sticks, these Eldliches, can't be destroyed by card effects, but that doesn't mean that they can't get spun away by Baxia. Actually, this one, yeah, it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. So, yeah, they can be destroyed by card effects, but again, Baxia doesn't care about that kind of protection. So, I'll start with the Vishuda, special summoning that here, and going into the Monk. I want to start picking off my opponent's back rows before I commit to my plays here. Obviously, I know that will end because they just flipped it up, but even before that, we knew they had a Scarlet Sanguine here. But since they've already gotten Eldlich out, they can actually special summon any zombie they want from the deck, and they're going to get a Necro Banshee, which I'm totally fine with them doing that here at this point during the combo. There actually could have been later points they could have messed me up a little bit more by changing the type on me with the zombie world here, but now that they've showed me pretty face up that that's what they plan to do, I'm going to save my Vishuda, which I was going to use on one of these back rows for this zombie world that's going to inevitably get dropped on me here. I'll special the Ecclesia, and the opponent flips up the, or not flips up the, but activates the Banshee in response to that, in addition to the Rivalry of the Warlords. I will, of course, chain the Ecclesia in response to that, so that way I don't get hit with the Rivalry. And then the Zombie World does actually prevent the Mo Ye from activating here, so this is a scenario where I should have grabbed Taia instead of Mo Ye, because, you know, the opponent's got the Zombie World plus the Rivalry, and the Swordsoul token is a worm. The Mo Ye's effect can't activate because it's trying to summon a monster that I don't have the type of on the field. So if you're wondering why Mo Ye's effect didn't activate even though it didn't get negated, that's why. And ultimately I should have summoned the Taia had I thought about that a little bit more, but not that huge of a deal. We'll still use the Vishuda to bounce the Zombie World, and now we're just under Rivalry, which is not a problem at all. Fun fact, Swordsoul can even run Rivalry if you really want to, just because a lot of our plays just use worm monsters and nothing else. So yeah, I don't care at all about this Rivalry of the Warlords. I'll totally leave it face up here. That is a-okay with me. I will use Baxia to put the Mad Golden Lord and regular Golden Lord back in the deck there. My opponent's got a Guardian of the Golden Land, but that's actually completely fine because I wasn't even planning on having this Baxia around in the long term anyway. So its attack getting dropped to 0 is a little bit annoying because I think it did actually potentially prevent lethal here. But, well, the 2500 defense would have also prevented lethal here anyway. In either case, I'm just going to go for a Chao Fang, not only to run over the, what is this, the Guardian of the Golden Land here, but also because I use Baxia to make Chao Fang, my opponent's not going to be able to activate light effects, so they won't be able to activate their Eldliches in their graveyard. And I think my opponent realized this, and also, I think I might have even had a lethal here, potentially. I was thinking about going for the Shaman of the Tenyi, and then using that to be bring something back, but in either case, my opponent's not going to really have much of a follow-up, so, or they apparently didn't as they surrendered at that point. So, alright, let's take a look at the next game here. Alright, sure enough, like I thought, wow, we actually have another duel against Eldlich. I did have three games against Eldlich, which again, I don't think too many people are going to be too fussed about seeing, so. Alright, we take the first turn here. This hand is, meh. I mean, it's not bad, but particularly against Eldlich, it's not that great of a hand. And even against most other matchups, it's a fairly meh hand. It's got plays. We can, you know, go for the Monk of the Tenyi here, then special the Vishuda, and then use the Ashuna's effect to special an Adhara. And then from there, like I said, we've got plays, but ultimately, it could have been a little bit better. But, you know, beggars won't be choosers. It's better than opening a dead hand. Although I will say, I've always said this about Swordsoul Tenyi, this deck is super consistent, and dead hands really just don't even happen that often here. So, I'm going to get an Emergence because I'm not really quite sure exactly what I'm going to end up going for. It's going to largely depend on how this Heavenly Dragon Circle goes. I'm planning on using it to add the Longyuan here, and then potentially using the Emergence for a Protos later. So yeah, I'll use the Heavenly Dragon Circle to send the Monk and add the Longyuan. That will let me go into the Qixing Longyuan here. And then I actually still have my normal summon, if I recall correctly, so I'm not even going to go for Protos, honestly. Oh, that's right! I went for Mo Ye when I should have gone for Taia! It's funny how often I keep talking about that in this game, but yeah, this was definitely a case where I should have gone for Taia. I could have summoned a Draco Berserker of the Tenyi and gotten an extra draw here, but I instinctually went for Mo Ye and ended up paying the price as a result, so. But, you know, the opponent had a Lava Golem anyway, so would it have really even mattered in the long run? Nah, it wouldn't have. So that's how I'll justify my misplay there, I guess. Opponent's got a Lava Golem and then a whole bunch of back row. This is a pretty familiar sight at this point, but we managed to top deck a Shthana, so I'll start by normal summoning the Mo Ye. We'll see if it resolves. It doesn't. My opponent's got a skill drain, but, you know. Whatever. It could have been worse, honestly. My opponent's already been paying a lot of life points, and I've got a decent amount of damage on the board here. So I'm just going to enter battle phase and try to get my opponent down to 300 life points. But they do have the Scarlet Sanguine for the Golden Lord here. So I guess technically I should have attacked with the Lava Golem first. That would have been the correct play. But even if I had done that, my opponent could have chained the Conquistador first, and then the Sanguine, and then gotten the Golden Lord, and then the Conquistador, and then blown up the Lava Golem either way. So, not too fussed about it. Opponent could have answered it, so not going to make too much of a difference there. I hear they'll battle over the Mo Ye. I'm not looking like I'm in the best spot here. My opponent's got a bunch of back row. I've got just a bunch of Imperms and a Shthana, but this Ecclesia is actually going to end up being pretty much exactly what I needed here. So I'll start by specialing the excuse me, the Shthana. My opponent did kind of read my mind here as far as going for the Vishuda, but I should still have, I believe, yeah, an Ashuna graveyard, so I can use that to go for a Vishuda, but my opponent's got a Golden Land forever. That said, I'm totally okay with this. My opponent's kind of doing for me what I wanted the Vishuda to do anyway, which was pick away at their back row, so plus, I don't think they've realized that I still had the Heavenly Dragon Circle. I had access to that too. Because I have a non-effect monster on the board, I can banish this from my graveyard to actually add a Tenyi card from my deck to my hand. So I'm definitely just going to get the the Vishuda anyway. And now from here, I can go ahead and bounce the skill drain. Here, sorry, let me take a sip of water. 1 second. Alright, much better there. So yeah, my opponent's got one back row left, but the main threat, the skill drain, is off the board. So now that it's off the board, I can use the Imperm to negate one of the cards that was previously negated. I wasn't able to activate Imperm before because skill drain was already negating things, and you can't negate a monster who's already being negated. So yeah, now that skill drain's off the board, I can flip up this Imperm on the Golden Lord. That'll prevent this face down card from, well, won't prevent it from being activated, but it will cause it to be negated if my opponent does choose to activate it. The opponent obviously just set this one, so I'm not really concerned about it. So now from here, I can use Ecclesia to go into the Taia. I'll use the Taia, of course, to get the token, sink into a Baxia. I'm going to put both of my opponent's Golden Lords back, so they're not hitting the graveyard. My opponent won't have access to them later. And then from there, we can use Taia's effects to set up our graveyard a bit here as well. Yeah, I can set up the Adhara here. Now I'll use Adhara's effect, banishing it to return the Ashuna to my hand. And let's see, yeah, we can use Baxia's effect to pop the Imperma. Now I can get back this Mo Ye, which I have a target for. I can reveal the Ashuna, special a token, and then go for the Chi Shao, go into the Chi Shao from there. Now Chi Shao will get a search and a draw, and I haven't used Longyuan yet this turn, so I can then go ahead and use that. And it's funny how much you can snowball off of seemingly so little, but yeah, even though it looked like I was in a really, really crappy spot, all it took was that one top deck to turn things around. It was the Ecclesia there, like I mentioned. Really managed to get this board state back into a place where it was more in my favor. Also, again, the opponent being so gung-ho to try to stop my Vishuda definitely helped clear out a lot of this back row that would have been more problematic for me to deal with a little bit later on. But here I can just go ahead and hit the monster with the Baxia. This face down is going to matter because it's got Imperms, and then now I'll just swing for lethal with the Baronne there. So, alright, that's going to go ahead and do it for the games. Let's move now to the outro. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you very much for watching all the way to the very end like this, especially, whoops, sorry, I got ahead of myself there. I want to thank you all for watching, especially all the way to the very end like this. That means a lot to not only me personally, but to the channel as a means of support as well. Comments and subscribing, that's also a great way to support the channel. That also means a lot to me personally. Comments I'm definitely looking for, as I always am. Suggestions as far as both gameplay and deck building goes. Swordsoul Tenyi, even though it's a deck that doesn't tend to change too much, there is still a lot of different tech options that you can include. So if you have a little, pet tech that you like for the deck, or just again an overall suggestion, definitely feel free to leave it in the comments. I'm always looking for those suggestions. And subscribing is the best way to get notified of when my videos drop, which does happen every single day. So you do have a daily Master Duel video to look forward to when you subscribe. But yeah, that's gonna just about do it for me here. So without further ado, this is Eldlich. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.